much about networking that said no one ever, right? So no matter where you are in this game, we hope that you take home with you, take away with you to the next job, just a couple of tidbits that'll make networking a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient for you. Again, my name is Shane Larson, and I'm thrilled to be with you today. Let's start by doing this. Now, we've got a whole gambit of things we're going to discuss today. But what will help me is if they're in your Zoom meeting, everybody locate and find the Q&A section. And that's where I'm going to invite you to put several comments as we proceed today. But on a scale of 1 to 10, and I need all 88 of us to answer if you don't mind, please. On a scale of 1 to 10, describe your networking knowledge. So 10, you're going to be like an Alex Falcone or somebody like that, that you should be teaching this class. 1 is, what's networking? Okay, so give me a range of where you are. And this will give me a little bit of a guess of where we're going to head today. Okay, seeing a lot of middle of the rows, 5s, 6s, 7s. Boy, almost across the board, 5, 6, 7.
Anybody bold enough to a 10?
Not yet. The
Wow,
last session we had a couple of people go 12. Okay, I'm seeing, again, we're all in kind of a middle boat there, and that is perfect because that's exactly what we aimed to hit for. So we've, Rob, we're not egotistical enough. Yeah, well said. Need to know about Wi-Fi 6. That's why we're here. One of the reasons we're here. So thank you. That is very, very helpful. That'll help me tailor our discussion to exactly that middle stream. I am not a 10. I'll confess right off the bat, but I want to know more. And I know that every bit that I can learn, I'm a little bit better. A little bit of a pre-quiz, guys. Keep up in the Q&A. Tell me which wireless band is preferable. Go ahead and type your answer right in the Q&A. I'm just getting a little bit of a gauge with your experience, 2.4 or 5. Okay, I saw range 2.4, speed 5. 5's Nathan, good comment. Depends on the device. Wow, we're seeing a lot of mixed 2.4s and 5s.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the answer? That's one thing we're going to talk about. Okay. Is this a good RSSI reading for a Wi-Fi connected device? Yes, no, maybe. Kenny, thanks for your honesty. No idea. Some no's, some yeses.
Yeah.
Could be better. It's okay, not great. Not sure, it's not great. It's got, this participation helps me so much because I'll know. I'd ask one of our techs, Mark.
Well, look, a Falcone says yes, but at the edge.
Okay, okay. Well said. Let me keep testing you. Is this a good Wi-Fi password? Yes, but hard to remember. Okay, some no's, some yeses. Big fat no emoji. Assuming you don't have to read it to someone, yes, says Chris. That's great. Pretty annoying, but yes, Kate. And someone asked in the last session, how do you even make that smiley face? Okay. Next question. Let me explain this one. When you're designing a Wi-Fi network, and we're talking access points, how big does a network get before I ought to get help from either a professional agency or a wireless controller? How many access points, or how big should a network be before I go, geez, you know what? It might be wise to get some help here. So in sheer number of access points, how big is too big before you say, I don't know if I can configure this all on my own? Jason, the first scratch of your head is your sign to get some help. Okay, over 20. Unsure, Alan, haven't had that issue yet. I hear you. 6 to 10, 6 to 8, seeing a lot of those numbers. 250 device connections is an interesting way to look at it. Guys, we're going to hit all of these today. Okay. Here's the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. What channels should I use in Wi-Fi setup? Gary, Ben was the first answer. We got to send him some eggnog.
See, he's a smart one. He's a 10.
See, this is pretty common knowledge. 1, 6, and 11. Okay, that the 1, 6, and 11 is correct, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. But again, this gives me a great range of where we need to focus today, gentlemen. And this participation in the Q&A is so helpful for me. Please keep that Q&A section open and ready to type. Just the beginning of what we'll do as we move forward. Again, I'm Shane Larson, and here are my kids on the North Shore in Oahu, trip we took recently. My beautiful bride, which would be dying if she knew she were on screen right now. But I have 3 wonderful kids, beautiful bride. I live in northern Utah, where we've been having snowmageddon over the last 72 hours. So hopefully you're in a warmer and a more comfortable situation. After this webinar is done, I've got to go shovel snow. Okay, so here's what we're going to hit today. First of all, we're going to go through a pretty detailed introduction to Wi-Fi 6. What is it? Why should I be prepared to implement a Wi-Fi 6 network? What advantages does it have? And help me, Shane, in some kind of discussion prep for my customers. We'll introduce that today, along with the new 520 and 820 Araknis access points, which allow Wi-Fi 6 in an Araknis network. We'll then talk about what do you need to discuss to be able to access, to assess a network correctly. What do I need to know from my client before I decide, is Wi-Fi 6 what they need? Can I set up their network, or do I need the help of a controller or something like that? So what questions do you ask to make sure that you're designing the right network for your clients? Then we'll go into discussion of a couple of variables that can help you optimize wireless in the networks that you set up. A couple of variables to keep in mind as you plan them and as you implement them that lead into a discussion of the big why of, hey, Shane, when should I get the help of a wireless controller? When should I get the help of a consulting agency to help me sell? What are those sizes and factors that help me make that kind of decision? And then finally, we'll be able to end our day with a great discussion of access network managed solutions and the products that are now available at our local branches to be able to help you with those larger or enterprise networks when you deploy Wi-Fi. So some fun direction of where we're headed today. We're in for a lot of fun today and look forward to your continued interaction. So let's begin by talking about Wi-Fi 6. And a lot of you are probably out there asking, geez, Shane, why? Why would my clients want Wi-Fi 6? What is it exactly that I should be prepared to talk to when I discuss with a customer? In the Q&A, I'm just curious, for those of you who have had a little bit of a hint, Wi-Fi 6 has been around already for a couple of years, still not prominent. What are the advantages of a Wi-Fi 6 Wi-Fi network? Anybody want to throw a couple of answers in the Q&A? Curious in your responses. Okay, Jeff, secure. Faster speeds. Rob, it's new and shiny. Sometimes that's reason enough for some of our customers. Better coverage, roaming, speed and performance. Multiple users can upload and download at the same time. Raphael, that's a very insightful comment. And we're going to talk exactly to that thing. Great, great answers. Let me give you a couple of just talking points to help you in those discussions with your customers. First of all, The biggest feature is higher data rates. I can move more ones and zeros. And we're about to show you exactly why, so that you'll be prepared to answer why when your customers ask. More robust connections, especially on the periphery of a Wi-Fi coverage area. Devices will stay connected more strongly and longer than Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 4. There is also in Wi-Fi 6 the ability to have simultaneous data reception and transmission. Transmission and reception happening at the same time for multiple client devices. And I'm about to show you why. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is I've only seen in my experience, and maybe you guys could throw in the Q&A where you've seen them, I've only seen so far a handful of Wi-Fi 6 enabled devices even out there. In the Q&A, guys, what have you seen? I know Samsung offers a phone that's Wi-Fi 6 certified. Pixel cameras and phones, I've heard, also have a version. Any of you all new iPads, Charles? I did not know that. And so that's really helpful to me. You will see in those kinds of devices that certification that I'm a Wi-Fi 6 capable device. They're becoming much more popular. And for your customers, the new and shiny comment, right? Some of your customers will be interested in a Wi-Fi 6 network just because of that it is the latest, the greatest. And this, my friends, will future-proof networks as we move into the next couple of years. That's also a very strong selling point. Let's roll up our sleeves and get a little nitty-gritty about this. What is it about Wi-Fi 6 that helps me move more data? Okay. There are so many nerdy acronyms in the networking world that there is one called QAM. Anybody know what in the Q&A can throw that out? What does QAM stand for? You'll get a whole gallon of eggnog from Gary if you get this one right. No Googling either. Okay. Quadrature amplitude modulation is what this stands for. And here's the idea, my friends. Picture a line of data. And in that line, I'm lining up zeros and ones. So picture a queue of 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1 that moves in a data stream between device and the network. Okay. What a QAM does is flips and gives us another axis. Instead of just X, we now have Y. And I can move data in this direction as well as this, a whole other plane. And with that being said, QAM areas are often called constellations. And some of the Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5 QAMs offer 16 QAM data movement environments, 64, even up to 256. Wi-Fi 6 offers a 1024 QAM. Okay, you can see how much more data that can move on that XY axis. Okay, now one thing you need to keep in mind, okay, with all of that data that's moving, that means that my signal to noise ratio, my SNR rate, I need to keep a mind on that and be even more mindful of things that might offer interference in a Wi-Fi 6 network. Okay, object interference, other RF interference, we'll talk about a little bit about later. Those kinds of things need to be reduced in as much as is possible to take advantage of that much data that's moving. Okay, so we'll answer some of those questions about how I better prepare a network as we move forward. One kind of example, kind of cheesy to show you what we're talking about, is that when I move data, and what I did is I took very old black and white video as an example here. But when I'm transmitting data, I'm moving ones and zeros. And that frame that I move them in is only so big. And that's what causes, you can see on the right, the buffering that you often see when you're streaming video. So how do I lessen that kind of buffering? Well, one way is I make my QAM larger. I get a bigger data size packet. I move more data, less buffering, right? And so that makes complete sense of one reason why you'd want to sell your customers on Wi-Fi 6, okay? Another important thing to keep in mind is this. Another nerdy acronym here, guys, okay? But OFDMA stands for orthogonal frequency division multiple access. You're like, Shane, I don't care. Well, just tell me what it means. Picture, again, a data stream that I've got pictured here on the slide, okay? And within each packet, there are carrier channels for me to place ones and zeros, okay? In Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, previous generations, a text,
I didn't get that.
Siri just freaked out about that, sorry. But a text message might take up just 4 or 5 of these channels, very small data need for a text. An email might take 10 to 15, 20 of these, whereas streaming Netflix might take the whole gamut, okay? But in previous generations, no matter the size of your transmission, you would send the entire channel set per data transmission. So if I'm sending a text, I'm sending data with a whole bunch of empty capabilities, but previous generations can only move one set at a time. So picture again, guys, a queue where I've got a text message ready to go, an email ready to go, and streaming Netflix ready to go. Netflix would have to wait for these two to go before it gets its turn. And I've sent a lot of empty channels without data. Wi-Fi 6 has the capability to load an entire set with multiple device data. So a text I could send here, use the next spaces for that email, and then fill the rest with Netflix data. That is so much more efficient. And one of the reasons why data can move so much more quickly in a Wi-Fi 6 network. Does that make sense, my friends? And so another cheesy way to picture it and maybe explain it to a customer who's wanting to know, we're all concerned with deliveries this time of year, right? And so picture loading a delivery truck, and in Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, even if I had a box only this big, I'd put it in the truck and that'd be it. I'd have to send the whole truck with all kinds of empty space, okay? But that one little package, what a waste of gas, space, effort. In Wi-Fi 6, I think you're getting the analogy. I can load this for this device. Here's Netflix, here's Hulu, here's, Spotify. I can put them all in the same truck and send it on. And so that's one way that you can help your customers understand a little bit more of the advantages of Wi-Fi 6. Okay. Hopefully, Steve, that's answering a couple of your questions, and I'll answer the rest of it here in just one moment. One other protocol, you don't need to memorize just the principle, is a protocol called HEERSU, High Efficiency Extended Range Single User. Strengthens the connections on the peripheries for a Wi-Fi 6 coverage cloud. So the devices connecting out on the edge, okay, are going to get a more robust connection, higher data rates because of this protocol. Fewer disconnects out on the edges. And that's one thing this protocol offers. Wi-Fi 6, a couple of things to keep in mind that you may have questions in your head about. Wi-Fi 6 still uses a 2.4 and a 5 gigahertz band simultaneously. Okay. It is also, I've had a lot of people ask this question, it's also retroactive for Wi-Fi 4 and Wi-Fi 5 devices. So you won't lose any of the devices that now connect in the network if you install Wi-Fi 6 APs. So that's really good to know. It's retroactive and yet future proofs, okay, your customers for when Wi-Fi 6 devices become more prominent. Okay, all Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5 still running at peak performance with the capability of Wi-Fi 6 as your customers bring home those devices. Okay, let me narrow it down, just a couple of things to keep in mind about Wi-Fi 6, guys. And that is this, number one, this is a great opportunity for you to upsell. Some of your customers want the very best, the very latest, the greatest, an opportunity for you to have that kind of a discussion to upgrade and improve the network. Remember the backwards compatibility for Wi-Fi 6 access points. Plan in when you're doing your specs of coverage areas. More on that here in just a couple of moments. Still plan for 5 gigahertz coverage, which gives you a bit smaller range than a 2.4. 5 gigahertz will still give you more bandwidth in a Wi-Fi 6 than 2.4 will. Keep that in mind, okay? This higher data rate requires a strong signal to noise ratio, okay? So do your very darndest to limit object and RF interference. Again, we'll get to spend some more time on that here in just a couple of moments, okay? And finally, keep in mind the higher power consumption of a Wi-Fi 6 access point may require a little more PoE than the access points you have installed now. So make sure when you install, you're checking your switch PoE budget and you're making those plans necessary to make sure you have enough PoE. Your Wi-Fi 6 access point will probably be online, but other PoE devices may fall off. So just keep that in mind. Josh, you've got a great question. Do Wi-Fi 6 features get dropped when Wi-Fi 4 or 5 devices connect? Like when a G device connects to an N network? I don't believe so. I'm going to research that one for you. Josh, when I'm done today, I'll give you my email address. Can we stay in touch? Let me research that one and I'll give you a precise answer. I don't think so, though. Okay? Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6 APs should not be mixed on the same network. Michael, that is correct. If you go Wi-Fi 6, put them in for every access point in your home, your customer's home. We are now selling at our local branch stores the 520 Wi-Fi 6 Araknis access point, which offers a 2x2 antenna array, and the 820, which offers a little more robust, higher data movement 4x4 antenna array. And so my invitation is to think of ways I can use those access points and help future-proof, have a great discussion with my clients to make sure they're ready, to make sure that we hit all of those needs. When you configure, Greg, great question, you should make sure that those SSIDs are named appropriately, okay? So again, Greg, I can give you a couple of pictures of descriptions of how to name those SSIDs. grab my email, Greg, would you, by the end of this? Okay. How do I know, Shane, if I should set up a Wi-Fi 6 network? How do I know if I should put in additional access points? What kinds of questions should you be concerned about, okay, when you design a network? So I'm curious in the Q&A right now, if you guys please could, throw me some questions. What do you want to know about a network before you design it? And maybe I can make it more specific. Maybe I'll do this, okay? Which one of these things do you think is more important when designing a network? A wireless RF scan of the wireless nature of the environment. If you believe that's the most important, put a number 1. 2 is visiting the site, the most important thing. 3, I just need to know the number of devices you're going to connect. 4, customer interview. Okay, I'm enjoying looking at your numbers. Okay, a lot of you are taking the easy way out and saying, Shane, well, all of them. And you're not wrong. Okay, not wrong at all. If you're going to do any of those, do number 4. Okay, don't ever neglect the opportunity to talk with your customer. You will learn more by asking questions like, what do you most commonly do on the internet? I have a dear aging father who all he does is watch carpentry videos on YouTube. Netflix is not important to him, okay? I might design network a little bit differently than a home with 8 kids who are all streaming Netflix 17 hours a day, right? Where do you sit in this home when you're most often on the internet? Show me, okay? Do you ever have problems? Little circle of death when you're sitting here? Do you work in your home? And have you ever been frozen, right, in a Zoom meeting where you're working? Asking those kinds of questions are so important. Don't neglect, okay, going to a site and walking around and looking at the objects that are in it. Wi-Fi 6, like we talked about before, needs special attention to object interference. Guys, I got a treat for you. This is a picture of Gary's home, Southern California. This is his second home. Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, he lives in one much nicer than that. But can any of you just look at this house right now and tell me anything that would make you nervous about setting up Wi-Fi in this home? I'll even show you a couple more pictures. Okay, here's where Gary keeps his nice cars. Anything making you nervous about this place, guys? Concrete and stone. A lot of steel. And guys, maybe the biggest is glass. That much glass in a home. Think of glass. Some of us get confused because, well, I can see through it. RF must be able to travel through it, okay? Nothing could be further from the truth. Glass has such, especially if it's textured glass, has such a reflective nature. Almost think of mirror. And all of the glass in this particular home is going to greatly increase the need for access points. You wouldn't know that, okay, until you'd went there and walked around and did some careful planning. A scan using a Wi-Fi analyzer or some other device is highly recommended to find out, set up an access point and connect a phone to it. Open the wireless interface, whether it's an Araknis AP or whatever, and walk around the home and look for RSSI readings and find out where those dead spots are. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind as you're planning, picture a condo like this, and you set up an access point. Channel 1's broadcasting. You then learn that Zigbee, this Control 4 home has Zigbee, and I want to avoid interference with Zigbee channels. Very important thing to keep in mind, okay? I can set those up so they don't conflict until, oh, you're not, sorry, I'm showing you the picture still. But then picture, my friends, you've got channel 1 here, you're broadcasting, and you're all fine until a neighbor moves in next door and starts broadcasting. And how those kinds of things, wireless environments change all of the time. Okay, and so making sure again that you future-proof a little bit with a controller, we'll talk about that a little bit later, especially on a large network, can save you so much trouble. Okay, how many people? Not Gary might have 4 or 5 people in his home pretty often, but if he entertains on the weekends and they're all going to be streaming, they're all going to bring a phone or a tablet with them, and he's got 30 people on the weekends, but plan on each person having 4 wireless devices to connect to a network, and you'll find that soon you're starting to get a pretty good idea of how big this network needs to be. How many devices am I connecting cable-wise in a rack? And how many are connected Wi-Fi? What is my customer doing? You guys are getting the gist here. Kenny, I've got some analyzers I'll recommend. Grab my email, okay? And I'll send you a couple of links to some things that I think really work well. Talked about the RF scan. A lot of people forget this step. They can promise you, hey, this network is going to give you full gig speeds. And you buy a router that can do that, a switch that can do that, an access point that can do that. But where I'm from here in rural Utah, if your client can only get one ISP and their biggest package is 250 meg, okay, you've made yourself a liar. So find out what the available and what your customer is willing to pay for when it comes to pipe, how much data you're going to be able to bring in. Don't overpromise yourself. Find out about the ISP first. Okay. Then you get to devices and you start to plan those. As we segue into this next section, guys, what should I be most concerned about in terms of my equipment? I'm going to give you this hint. I think you guys will be able to make the right router choice. I really do. With your networking knowledge, you told me, I have no doubts. Switches, how many ports do I need? Make sure I get a full gigabit backplane, not rocket science. Managed power, how many outlets do I need to control? Again, not too tough. But how do you determine how many access points? How many access points am I going to need to give kick butt Wi-Fi in this particular home? Okay, I suggest number 3 is your toughest decision. Let me give you a couple of hints to make that decision correctly, and it will lead to where we can start to use managed networks like access networks for jobs that absolutely need them. That's where we'll end our discussion today. Let me show you a picture of Gary's second home. Okay, beautiful home here in northern Utah. Log cabin. I heard one of you or saw one of you mention that logs are horrible attenuators of signal, hard to get signal through, and that's absolutely true. So Gary made the awesome choice of using glass and logs. Way to go, Gary. So much so that his guests, when they come over, sometimes we'll sit out here on the front lawn, want to connect to Wi-Fi, but can't do it. And Gary will often rent out his home for weddings and excursions. There's people that set up out here and want to have Wi-Fi capability. Your task, how many access points do I need? Where do I need to put them? And what other adjustments do I need to make? Okay. Nathan, I saw your question. I'll follow more. I'll talk more about that channel selection. Okay. Here in just a couple of moments. But two variables that if you learn to master, okay, you will go a long way to perfecting, or as close as you can to perfection, a wireless network. Coverage and capacity. Okay. First of all, coverage. Here's a floor plan of Gary's house, and his access point was placed right here in the middle of the home. We are interested in knowing from that access point out, how far can I go to create a coverage bubble that tells me where Wi-Fi is effective and where it is not? Okay, how do I know? And the easiest way, my friends, is to connect a phone to the Wi-Fi network, open the access points interface, and watch what is called RSSI as you walk around the property or the home. Now, a couple of you mentioned, Shane, I just can't ever remember what's a good reading or what isn't. Keep this in mind. RSSI, received signal strength indicator, is measured in dBms. And the closer you get to zero, the better the RSSI. Okay? The better the RSSI. And so as I get more negative, the worse the signal gets. And my magic number, there's arguments either way of this, but in my experience in working with techs across the industry, my suggestion, make minus 65 your limit. Okay, so when you walk and you get to minus 65 showing on the interface, stop, put a marker there, and then go to another dimension, and then you can map out. It's not always a perfect circle, very rarely, okay? But you can get a good idea of where that coverage zone is. Josh, how do you do that before the property is built? Hard. There's some heat maps and other kinds of things that you can do to get a glimpse. But maybe the easiest way is just to bring a router, switch an access point with a long cable, and move your access point to different spots to try to find the best location using this RSSI measurement. Think minus 65, guys, as your coverage variable. Yeah, oh, Josh, before drywall, finished materials? Yeah, tough. You can have some guesses, and I'll give you a couple of hints at some of those guesses depending on materials coming up in just 1 second. But picture, guys, the other variable as capacity. Coverage is the size of my bubble, but how many devices is what capacity is trying to deal with. How many people can I have simultaneously connect before I've reached the limit? So I've got all of these people inside this bubble. How many devices can I fit in that bubble before I need to add another access point just to power those devices? That's the capacity variable. If, my friend, you're having, Gary, people 40 to 45 over, do I need another access point for that many guests? And if they have 2 or 3 Wi-Fi devices, boy, how do you guess? How do you figure that out? Well, when you look at an access point specs, you will see all kinds of numbers posted. 250 connection devices, 4,000, and I've seen some just astronomical numbers that sometimes just make me roll my eyes, because in our testing, and I think this is a safe number, in my testing, we found that 30 connected devices at full streaming. So picture 30 iPads streaming Netflix simultaneously. That's what you ought to plan for, is a good limit, despite the claims of different manufacturers. Even package Araknis, I'm telling you, 30 is a good number. Ruckus, whatever you use, my experience is 30 is a good number to plan on. So if Gary's having 45 people over with 2 or 3 devices apiece, I might need not only 2, but maybe a third just for capacity. Okay? Just for capacity. And Taylor, your question is a great one. AP locations use the access point GUI and that RSSI limit. That's my advice to you. Okay. So as I go to set this up, guys, one last question before we get into some application here is this. Do I use 2.4 or 5, Shane? You've given me some good numbers here, but 2.4 or 5? My answer is both, but lean towards and plan for 5. Okay, let me show you the wireless spectrums and where some of these sit. Okay, Z-Wave is at 900 megahertz. Zigbee and wireless IP can be broadcast at 2.4. Okay. Also, the problem at 2.4 is what else lives at 2.4? Cordless phones, baby monitors, microwaves, Bluetooth, all of these, a really thick interference-wise environment, okay? 5 is preferable for 2 reasons. Higher bandwidth. There's more room for 1s and 0s here than in 2.4, and less interference. Okay. The only drawback in which you have to plan for is that given the same amplitude, a 5 gigahertz coverage area, where you get to that minus 65 limit, that bubble is going to be smaller for 5 gigahertz than it is for 2.4. So when you do your measuring, guys, measure to cover 5. Teach your customers to use the 5 SSID and create a 2.41 called an alternate network that can be used for devices that only use 2.4, like printers is a common example. But my advice, make 5 your common and the one you plan for. Another visual description of what this looks like. Okay. I saw your question, Sean, about too many APs create too much interference. I'm going to answer that. Okay. One really quick note on passwords, guys. Make them easy to remember, difficult to guess, and longer is stronger. You know all those special characters that some platforms require? Apple suggests a just crazy password, right? With all those special characters. It is no harder for a hacking engine to find out special signals special symbols than it is for just letters. The hacking engines don't care if it's a special character. They use whatever's on the keyboard. That is one of the biggest myths about passwords, okay? You're better off making them longer and easier for your customer to remember. So Gary's kick butt rock or log cabin is a better password than Gary /$ stars. Okay. And so just one hint. We don't have time for it today, but oversee can be used so much to use this wireless. We'll do more trainings in the coming year about how to use oversee to make this part of the process so much easier. So guys, in summary, remember these three things, and they will show you why an access network solution is so needed. Access point placement. Where you put these things is just critical, okay? If Gary's access point was here, would you guys pick A, B, or C to place your second access point for coverage? Well, B is going to give us a bubble, A and B, bubbles like this. And the question was, wouldn't that cause interference? The answer is yes, absolutely, especially when it comes to roaming. So if I pick up my iPad here, walk to here, I might be closer to access point 1 than this one. But I'm still stuck on this one because my device hasn't haven't got to -65. So it's still latching on to the old one. That creates problems. So placement, that's still too much overlap. As I measure, C is probably my best choice. Okay. This would be an outdoor access point for all of those guests out here. And then another variable to keep in mind, again, are these objects that cause interference. Refrigerators, water heaters, microwaves. Here you've got glass with one of the densest materials on earth, water. Aquariums are wireless killers, guys. Plan around those, especially as early as you can. I'll show you a gamut of attenuating substances. Glass is horrible. Stucco even worse. Here you've got a Faraday cage inside of concrete, right? So plan on those guys and how they'll affect you. Channel selection is another variable. So if I have adjacent access points, guys, make sure you place them on different wireless channels. Different wireless channels, okay? That way devices can differentiate much easier as they roam from one coverage area to the other. Huge, huge deal. And my third variable that I can control is how powerfully those are transmitting. Amplitude power can be turned down to make less of a coverage area. Does that make sense, guys? So I get those -65 areas touching and not overlapping too much. That's the biggest questions you've got to answer. And so we're heading into our big so what. Shane, you want me measuring -65 coverage areas. You want me making sure that I use different channels for adjacent access points. And you want me to adjust that amplitude perfectly to where I get. How big then can I manage? Right? Because all those variables are fine with 2 access points. But now imagine a network with not 2 access points, but where you decide you need 3 or 4. Where do I get before I finally go, oh my goodness, what is too much? Okay. And so at this point, here is my general guidance, my friends. You have the tools where you could easily manage up to 3 access points. Put them on different channels. Forrest, I saw your question. What about using the other ones? There's not, other than using 1, 6, and 11 will give you the ability to stagger. You want them to be more apart, especially if neighbors move in next door. So generally we use those because they keep you, I would never use more than 3 different ones on a project for 3 access points. And if you do that, make sure you're keeping them separate, which is what 1, 6, and 11 does. 3 you guys can do. But my counsel is when you get to between 3 and 10, you should look for the help of a wireless controller, which is where we're ending our discussion today. Access networks will sell you at our local branches available now an access point that does all of this for you. The channel selection, it moves the RSSI amplitude and value bubbles so that they touch appropriately without overlap. It manages, if a neighbor moves in next door and starts screaming on channel 11, it'll move that adjacent AP to 6. Right? I mean, what a huge, huge thing. When you get over 3, between 3 and 10, using a controller, this Forest is unleashed, which I'm about to introduce. Yep. That provides you that help. Okay. And then when you get over 10, my advice is to seek the assistance of a company like Access Networks to come help you on site, to do a scan, suggest access point placement, make sure you're getting the right equipment. Not that you couldn't handle it with a lot of experience, but my advice to you is if you get over 10, consider using a professional service to help you get it right. Our tech support team tells us 50% of the problems they solve are network-based. You'll never be satisfied if the network isn't working. And if you're over 10, my advice, get some help. And so what this does and where this leads us, Shane, tell me more about these controller-assisted access points, because this will make such a huge difference. The access network APs, what they will do and what they manage, like I told you, the controller is embedded in the access point. No need for like a package NK1 or something else, another racked device. It's embedded inside the access point, okay? And we'll do the amplitude adjustments, the channel selection, all of those things to make sure your Wi-Fi is running smoothly. One other really cool thing about these unleashed products is the BeamFlex technology, okay? This is so cool. I would buy them just for this. But in a regular Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5 regular access point, you will get a bubble that looks something like this. And if I'm connecting a device out here, I may be able to connect, but I'm going to have bandwidth problems. BeamFlex, once a device is connected, it will alter the coverage window to enhance the throughput for that device. So we'll literally change the cloud of where you're broadcasting to target that device. It's freaking bad to the bone, okay? And so depending on the access point you choose gives you a number of antenna arrays and beam flex arrays that make that possible, okay? Right now at our local branches, the access network 350 Unleashed is the entry level to this kind of thing. Jason, the Araknis 820 series does not contain the controller. So my advice is Araknis configured networks up to 3 access points. From then, my advice, get an Unleashed. This is a ruckus access point. Yeah, a couple of you noticed that and you're not wrong, okay? The controller is on board. This is an entry-level 2x2 4 spatial beam flex streams, giving you 64 available antenna patterns, which is so cool, okay? This is designed for low density environments, a bedroom, okay, a patio where you don't have a lot of devices. But the controller here, what would happen is when you put in 4, 5, 6 of these access points, one becomes the master, the controller, and the other 2 connect, okay, to receive direction from that controller AP. The next level up, the 510, is a Wi-Fi 5 or lower only version. And remember, don't mix 6 and 5s. This is just a little more affordable for just 5 and 4 environments. Designed for medium density environments, the 510. The 550, designed for medium density environments, okay? 2x2 antenna array, but we're getting more devices here. And then finally, you've got the granddaddy, the 650. 128 available antenna patterns, the 4x4 robust array, high density. This is for your living room, your kitchen area, your family room, okay? The cool thing, guys, is you can mix and match these Unleashed APs, okay? So I can put a 650 in that big area and a 350 in the other less dense environments. And again, the controller does all of the cloud arrangement for me, the channel arrangement. It will save you so many truck rolls and so much help as you integrate these, okay? So my friends, we're at the top of the hour. Just in review, we've talked about Wi-Fi 6 and why it's worth an upscale discussion with your customers. We've talked about what questions you ought to ask. What are the variables? Remember coverage, capacity. And then I can manipulate placement of the access point, channels, adjacent APs should be on different channels, and then the signal strength, amplitude, okay? And I need help. Our advice is when you get over 3. Between 3 and 10, consider these incredible access network solutions, okay? As just great helps to make that Wi-Fi network just robust, powerful, and foolproof. Don, in the future, look for more training materials about how to set them up. The fact of the matter is it's pretty easy. But look for more training materials that we'll broadcast and send forth, as well as additional trainings to help make that happen. Great to be with you today. Here is my email address. I would love any questions. I wasn't able to get to everybody's, okay? Please email me and I would be glad to do this, or set up additional training with just your dealership or something else. We'd love to help in any way that we could. It's been a privilege. Gary, back to you.
Yeah, Shane, thank you so much. I mean, with regards to the questions, I mean, so many of the topics, bring up instances. I just saw a question that the guy's setting up a 47,000 seat arena, basically.
Yeah.
Guys, you got to remember, our partner stores are set up for this. Train has trained us all, and as new products come through the stores, we're constantly learning, passing on information from other people's jobs. It's such an incestuous kind of setup we have at our stores with the store support and training. So, but we need you to introduce the topics to us, and we can go forward. But with what Shane was talking about, I'm going to get everything together, get you an email. We can start there, hit us back on stuff. Shane, I'm going to give you all of there's 99 responses on
Please,
today's.
I love them. I would love
But
them.
yeah, I know,
Answer them if
but
you can.
I'll whittle it down to where the actual questions were. Some of them were just call out and responses when you were quizzing us in the beginning. But more importantly, we will have access to what you were asking about. I see a couple hands up, Kim and Brian. You might not have typed your questions in there and so forth. Both of our email addresses are within the registration, or especially mine is gary.usher@snapone.com. So guys, love to continue this discussion. We don't have any more webinars that I'm scheduled till the end of the year. So we're here to help access networks and all of that new product that's kind of come through. I love seeing the participation now. I love seeing you guys reference the Ruckus stuff that from the past and kind of identifying what it's turned into, for instance. So those kind of questions we want to continue to expand upon. I see Ben Dolly on here. He's an expert. Alex Falcone, he's an expert. I'm going to pull you guys in to pull together some answers for our guys here. Everybody, it's time to go. I'm going to send you guys an email. You'll have a recording and Shane's slide deck, and that's about it. Look to us in the event section for our upcoming webinars that I've got already scheduled. URC in January, and Sure Call for cell phone boosters, etc. That's coming up this third week of January. So we've got a whole round of trainings that we're doing. Look for us right now live as far as the partner stores, live training starting late January on Luma product. There's new stuff coming out there, and I will be live in the locations on that product all the way through Q1. Then we got Lutron, and then we got Araknis, and more stuff coming up. So lots of training, guys. What a fantastic year. Shane, thank you so much for all your hard
Thanks,
work and
everybody.
efforts and traveling and putting these PowerPoints together for all of us to learn from and go back and reference to. So guys, take care. Shane, have a great holiday. To all of you guys, be safe out there. Enjoy your holidays. We're going to continue to work hard and support you guys in 2023. From all of us at Snap One Local Partner Stores. We'll see you later.
Thanks, everybody. Great to be with you.